is Techno-Activism Third Mondays. It is a monthly event that is held in a number of cities across America and across the world. And it's a get-together of people that are some technical people, some non-technical people. We talk about what's known as circumvention technology, which is essentially technology to help people get around censorship, to get the information that they want to read, to communicate with the people they want to communicate with without coming under surveillance. Tonight we have some really interesting speakers. I think you're going to really enjoy it. Our speakers tonight are Harlo Holmes and Bryan Nunez, both of which are from an organization called the Guardian Project. Now, the Guardian Project has been around for quite a number of years. They develop software mostly for Android, for the Android operating system on mobile telephones. Some of the software that they develop is based on photo and video. Some of it is based on instant messaging and voice encryption. And tonight they're going to talk about one of their software projects that they're working on now, which is called InformaCam. Thank you again for coming, and here's Wesley with some more information for you.
Thanks for holding the event tonight. But before we get started with Bryan and Harlo, I want to mention two events that OpenITP is holding in the very near future. In August, next month, we have the CryptoCat Hackathon on the 17th and 18th of August. Look online on our website, openitp.org, for details. We also have our fourth Circumvention Tech Summit, which is a gathering of people who are developers, UX designers, translators, usability testers, everyone from all parts of the community to work on circumvention and anti-surveillance, anti-censorship tools. That's going to be in September 29th to the October 1st. We have travel grants. It'll be held in Berlin. So please look online on our website, openitp.org, for more details. And with that, I want to introduce Bryan and Harlo.
Hi, thanks everyone for coming. It's good to see a lot of familiar faces in the crowd. I'm obviously Bryan, and this is Harlo. How many of you guys have heard of InformaCam before? A few, maybe 30%, 40%. So hopefully I won't be going over a lot of well-worn material, but I think we've made a lot of progress in the last couple months. So we're excited to talk about that. So for those of you who don't know what InformaCam is, it started out as a joint project between Witness, which is a human rights organization that I used to work for, and the Guardian Project, who I now work for, as a response to the needs that human rights defenders had using mobile devices to collect documentation of abuses of human rights and making sure that that media is secure, meaning that it's safe from being intercepted by actors or governments that want to get that information and find out who's collecting information that could be used against them. And then secondly, verifiable, meaning that when this media gets to its intended destination, there would be some mechanism to verify that what happened in the video or the image is actually what happened in reality. So there's no way to really verify that part of it, but so we've tried to come as close as we can by using the native sensors in mobile devices. So people know about the GPS sensors in your mobile phone, probably accelerometer, but there are other sensors too, including Bluetooth, Wi-Fi networks, cell towers, and a bunch of other sort of radio frequency sensors that we pull into the media and embed it directly into the file, and then we actually use the sensor of the camera to create a sort of unique fingerprint by which to sign the entire package. All of that is encrypted and signed to a public key, which is your intended destination. And that way we were able to sort of maintain this chain of evidence that can later be used to verify the media and establish it as evidence in a legal setting, if that's what ends up happening to the media. So Harlo is our lead developer and the main person behind InformaCam, and I'll leave it to her to talk about the actual nuts and bolts.
Okay. Although I would say that you covered the majority of the nuts and bolts. I'm usually the geek who comes up and starts, talking in all of these keywords and buzzwords, and no one ends up understanding me. And Bryan is usually the one who provides the user stories and things like that. But we can do that too.
Take metadata back.
Yeah. Well, okay. I guess I'll start by describing exactly like where I got involved with this project. When I was a master's student, I did my master's thesis on digital images and metadata. And actually, the point of my thesis was that the power of digital images nowadays is such that, okay, it's like VH1 storytellers.
That's very spoken word.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to sit down, but thank you very much. Anyways, the point is that digital images have the power to tell, more and more increasingly have the power to tell very, very moving stories and thereby change our political landscape. And it's not necessary, of course, the actual content of these images, the things that we see, tells a very compelling story, but that's only part of it now that we have digital images. The second part of it is the fact that just by pretty much existing and being shared and being viewed across the internet, for instance, it actually lends so much more credence to the actual event. And it's an interesting way of attaching a quantitative value to a very, very soft and social sciencey type concept. The fact that you have actually viewed something over the internet, adds 1 to the number of people who have viewed this particular image over the internet. And therefore, as more and more people look at a thing, the image itself, the event behind the image itself, actually gains more and more importance. And so, of course, with that importance comes great responsibility. We figured, we're seeing more and more today that images and video are being used in war tribunals across the world, being used to corroborate evidence about atrocities that are happening across the world. And so we kind of have a responsibility to the people that we're trying to protect, to make sure that this media, as it's introduced as evidence, is as close, or can be verified, can be authenticated in order to foster an environment where digital images and video actually have a place in our court system around the world. So this is kind of where we were coming from.
Should we just sort of talk through what's happening?
Yeah. So right here we actually have a video of our latest build of InformaCam. And actually I'm going to at this point take a moment to geek out just a little bit and say that InformaCam is a developer library, it's not an application. And so what that means is that any developer can actually use our InformaCam library to create an app that harnesses those capabilities of taking photos and video, using our app, taking all of this metadata that Bryan was just talking about, and creating media that is verifiable according to our schematic. And so it doesn't actually matter what the app is. It can be, anything from what we're about to show you right now to something like a fun app that you take out to the club to take photos, whatever. So what we have here is...
Sorry, I have a question. So what functionality does this library provide that's core?
Okay. Yeah, I guess those are my questions. So InformaCam establishes its trust based on PGP, which is the public key system. What it does is when a user first initiates an app that has InformaCam, they're asked to take a photo. Take a simple photo. Actually, the more bland the photo, the better, because what that does is it does two things. It creates enough what's called entropy, which is randomness, to generate a PGP key that is for that device only, that represents that device in the world, even though its owner is not necessarily known. The owner could be anonymous. And secondly, what it does is, and simply by like the happy accident that every every camera that you'll ever buy is different in one key way, because like as its chip is being printed in the factory, there's like a little bit of noise that gets into the sensor that kind of puts a unique fingerprint on the media that you take. So these two factors are sent to an organization that would receive your media. We'll talk about our International Bar Association example in a moment, but that's one case. And so they have your device's public key. So, and they have that original image that you take, and then every subsequent image that you submit will strengthen, or should strengthen, the organization's ability to trust that it came from you. And so what's interesting about that is that we were able to use PGP in order to, like, in a way that's like totally transparent and like the user never actually has to interact with, but still using the strength of that system without actually, or while still keeping users as anonymous as they wish to be. So, this is a long way to answer your question. It does that, and you create this key based off of your individual device, and every time you take a photo, of course InformaCam, like if you're an Android user, you'll notice that when you're in an app and you want to take a picture, sometimes it asks you what camera you want to take that picture with. InformaCam shows up as one of those cameras. You use it, you take your picture, you take your video, and while it's doing that, it's actually collecting a bunch of sensory data. And so the reason that we do that is actually, once again, for the verification purposes, because it's very, very easy to say that, I can set my phone to say that it is, I don't know, 9:30 p.m. in like January 1st, like 1985. I can say that if I wanted to. I could also spoof a variety of factors about the phone. However, because we're taking these sensor readings, we do have access to Wi-Fi that you've seen, or Wi-Fi points that you've seen while you're taking this photo. We have access to your GPS data, which not only contains your location, but it also contains the accurate timestamp. Variety of things that, upon further analysis, you can use those points to get an accurate picture, or a more accurate picture of where the user was when they took that photo, regardless of what they voluntarily offer in their settings of their device. So that's pretty much, and the third most important part is encrypted storage, because we all remember, and maybe at this point people get uncomfortable after I've talked about the sensors and stuff, because they're thinking about their privacy, and they're thinking about not only their privacy, but what happens when, if this data gets into the wrong hands. So we have a way of automatically encrypting not only the sensor data that I was talking about, but the media itself. So it actually disappears from, the public disk on your phone, and is left in encrypted storage for you that you're only able to use except for via InformaCam. I saw a question over there.
So you're saying that basically the library, when you upload your photos to tell a story or create a video about a certain event, that basically your info is printed in there and can try to play around with it, so if you're anonymous or whatever, you can still get info, get your phone bought under your name or whatever, so it's,
Yes.
so are you saying that there's a way for you to be able to sort of anonymize information?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that
Is
last
there a way
part.
to anonymize that information?
Anonymous as you do that, or will you do that for the person if they want to be anonymous and recording the story, or is it just the info is out there?
Sure, I will. The question was, when a user takes an image or video, is there, and correct me if I'm wrong, is there any danger that the media that they send out will retain like personally identifying factors, right? And I would answer that by saying we've designed it to preserve as much anonymity as the user wants. The only thing that's required is an alias, which could be any username that you choose. We have the option to include your email address, but that's totally optional. You don't have to. And third, while we did experiment for a while with creating our own, secure repository for people to submit things over Tor, and we'll talk about that later. There are actually a variety of, because this has become so cool right now, there is a variety of platforms that allow you to like leak stuff, to blow the whistle and all that stuff using a combination of technologies such as Tor. And so we've actually, thinking of that, we decided that we would keep that part open. So the user themselves, or not necessarily the user, but the organization that you want to communicate to can say, yeah, I want you to send me your media over Dead Drop, or, which is a really awesome tool. If you hadn't heard about it, please check it out. Or Global Leaks, another similar thing. Or you can also share it to Dropbox. You can share it to Google Drive. Or you can even say, it's not important that this piece of media goes directly to this other person. I just want to post it over YouTube or post it to Flickr or something like that. You can still do that. And of course, when you do that, that does reveal you, but that's your choice to make.
So our first deployment really of InformaCam is a partnership that we're doing with the International Bar Association, and they wanted a tool to be able to provide their investigators who are out in the field investigating incidences of mass atrocities. What they needed to do was they needed to have all of the features of InformaCam as well as the ability to put in additional metadata. So what you just saw before were forms that were customized for their needs. This is an animation showing what the investigator would do once a picture was taken. What you saw was all of those tags there are identifying people in the photo. And then it sends, you had the option to send the file over a hidden Tor service to the IBA's secure repository. And I think it's going to walk us through it again. Let's see. Or did it stop? Oh, there it goes. So there's also, it's hard to type in forms on a phone, so we also added an audio annotation feature. So if you're on the run and you have a piece of media, you hit the record button and then describe sort of crib notes of what's happening in the video or in the image, send it, and then you can go back to the gallery and that's going to repeat, and you can see how you can select regions in a photo or a video to add additional metadata. So that's it. We have a couple of devices here if you want to check it out.
We have one.
Well, we have one. We have one with the latest build and one that doesn't have the latest build. Oh yeah.
So, is there an app that you can just download with it, or does it have to be as part of a larger organization or service? Is it only the library that you guys are talking about?
Yeah, so the most current build, well, is it generic now, the current build that you have? Yeah, so what you're seeing here is the customizations we put together for the IBA, but we are also doing a generic InformaCam application that will be available to use. I mean, it's really, you know, a demonstration of what the capabilities of InformaCam are, but hopefully other people will pick up on extending that.
Also, we're definitely at the stage where our libraries become pretty stable, and now we're at the point where we're responding to the needs of developers who want to use it as like an API. So if anyone wants to build an app using the InformaCam library, we really, really do encourage that, just so we can get feedback on the API. Sorry.
How does the media and metadata presented to the person or the organization that's receiving, someone receiving it?
Okay. Sure. Do you have the? Well, actually, we've started to. We haven't really had the opportunity to answer that question completely, like in terms of, you know, what your organization, when you receive these submissions, looks like. We had like a couple of demos, and really they're just for the purpose so we as developers can see the input and, like, you know, build tools off of that. So we actually don't have that yet. What we're working on right now actually is a desktop application that takes, you know, those pictures, takes the metadata that we stuffed into them and decrypts it and verifies it and all that stuff, and then just kind of allows you to simply visualize the data there. Yeah, but so far actually, we don't believe that we're going to create something, you know, or like a large-scale application for it yet. We just don't have the resources right now.
Yeah. So what you're seeing here in this diagram are what Harlo was describing in the process it goes through. So there's once the media is shot, you can send it off through whatever channel you want to send it, and then it needs to be processed through this additional application or library, depending on how it's set up, we're calling it Gemifier, which verifies and extracts the metadata. And it's all gem this and gem that, because the metadata standard we're trying to promote is J3M, which stands for JSON Mobile Mobile Media Metadata, no. Evidentiary standard. It's J3M.info. Anyway, so it's JSON based, and if you have a hex editor, you can look at it too in the file. But at this point, we're really sort of focusing on creating a secure dead drop style place for people to put all of this data into, and hopefully other people who have built, you know, better data and media analysis tools will build into that system.
Another challenge, actually, maybe you guys will help us in promoting the gem stack, because another challenge that I've envisioned is, like, if you can see maybe we'll show you later after the presentation if you're interested, this massive metadata file that you get, which is all just like JSON data that has like so many different sensor readings and stuff like that. I want to unleash it upon like the data art community. If you know anyone who does that, who'd like to do some visualizations, that would be cool too. Yes.
What happens if you don't have to go to this slide, what happens if you don't have the connectivity to the internet? Something, if you're going to store it or record a block? I mean, think about anywhere where we can bring it.
Well, yeah, that's definitely that's a huge issue. You don't necessarily have to export the media after you've taken it. It can sit on your device. There's actually an option to export to your SD card. And then from there, I mean, at that point, the metadata is already sealed and baked in when you export it to your SD card. So if you want to take that SD card and chuck it over someone's wall, as long as it lands in their backyard and they stick it in their computer, it's still the same thing. I mean, that does break, of course, that breaks the physical chain of custody, but there is enough, there's enough strength in, the metadata as it's encrypted before, as long as that you can verify that with the user afterwards, then that's fine.
How do you know that the video hasn't been edited? You don't talk about the hash.
Yeah. Well, what we do is, we're attempting it in two ways. What we're doing right now is that immediately when, and this takes knowledge of the way that the Android system works. When you take a photo, the first thing it does is your device is going to tell it's going to tell that entity that manages media that it took a picture and where that file is. And we have listeners that listen for that. So immediately as something is inserted, we hash it. We look at the file and we just we don't take the hash of the file. We actually take the hash of the image properties. So in the case of an image, it's the hash of the bitmap, the actual pixels and their color values. In the case of the video, it's the actual RGB stream, which is pretty much the same thing, just in another, in a power of 2. So we have that hash, and once we have that hash, then we can that's part of the data that the organization receives. So no matter how much the file has changed, because there's metadata and times change and you edit different parts of it, as long as you haven't touched the actual pixel values, then that's considered verified. It is my favorite topic. The question was, what do I mean by semi-steganographic? So do you guys know what steganography is? Raise your hand if you don't know what steganography is. Okay, steganography is awesome. What it is it's the centuries, millennia old practice of taking a message and embedding it in a place where no one thinks to look. So back in ancient days, guys used to shave their heads, write a message on it, wait for their hair to grow back, and then go over to someone's house who knew that in order to read this message, they had to shave this guy's head, right? And so that's how we would sneak secret messages totally in the clear. So that's what steganography is. And so the point is that you want to take a message and you want to totally pass it along in the clear, and only people who know where to look for it will look for it and find it. So what we do is, in steganography, what people usually do is, or for digital steganography, they usually change pixel values by just a little bit. We actually have another side note. We have another app that we're actually about to release called Pixelnaut, which does real steganography. More about that some other time. But steganography in images is usually when you change, make minute changes to the pixel values that humans can't perceive, but computers can. And so that's how you hide that secret message in a clear channel. However, because we're talking about the law and we put so much high standard on verification, we don't want to actually have to tamper with anything that the user might see. We don't want to open ourselves up for questioning before a judge who says, well, you can't verify this because you changed, pixel values. How do I know where you stopped? We don't want to, open that kind of questioning. So what we do is we do what is the next best thing, and we stuff it in the headers. The same way, how EXIF works, right? It's the extra data that gets stuffed in your digital images, and that's how your iPhone knows exactly where you took it, that kind of a thing. Similar to that, we take all of our data and we stuff it in there. So that's why it's semi-steganographic. Yes?
Yes.
city went to time to develop all this system.
When we have the money, we will do it. iPhone developers are so expensive. And I'm not one, so we're all Android people. Yes?
Not so technical, but I'm just wondering much of outreach, some of the groups similar to the one you mentioned, the International Lawyers Association, because it seems to me that like Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, those are the ones who should be interested in this kind of application, because they should be requiring their field people to use that particular app to report on the human rights violations and the atrocities to verify the data. Because otherwise people in the field may not know to use it, that this option is available.
So that's where organizations like yours come in. And then the guy in the green t-shirt behind you, Ben, from Witness, is working on outreach for InformaCam. It's a human rights organization, so Witness is well connected to all of the entities that you just mentioned. And then you guys. So this is, as cool as we think this project is, we hope you guys think it's cool too. And I think the more people that work on it, even outside of the human rights venue, is better. Which is why we also decided that it'd be a better use of the technology to is libraryize it a verb? So just to get it out there and make it so that other people can use it for whatever applications they can. Meaning that the more people who are collecting secure and verified mobile media, then the more normal it is. So if you're let's say you're a Syrian activist and you get caught with this InformaCam thing running on your phone, that's very suspicious. But if it's built into your camera, your default camera phone app, then everyone has it, even the guy who's about to beat you up. So that's the win for us. Anything else? All right. Well. Oh yes, Ben. Ben had one quick announcement.
Awesome. How's it going? I'm Ben. I'm the guy in the green t-shirt. I work at Witness. So one of my colleagues is actually going to have a really awesome opportunity to give a presentation to the CEOs of most of the major device manufacturers. And so we kind of wanted to get some input. We have a few ideas of our own, but essentially if you were the CEO of a company, Nokia or Samsung or a company like this, what would you change about the way cell phones are made to make it better for sort of human rights and liberation tech uses? So I don't know if anyone has any suggestions now, or if anyone can think of anything, they can email me at ben@witness.org. So I don't know if anyone has any thoughts now, or you can just email me later. Thanks.
Thank you.